Welcome everybody to this Uphold special token discovery event. Some housekeeping first. At Uphold Institutional, we focus on providing education and execution in the digital asset ecosystem. We have built over the last 2 years an institutional grade OTC trading platform with a unique trading engine that is actually connected to over 30 different venues so that our clients can source liquidity across 300 digital assets, whatever that means. I'm not a trader. It's very complicated, but apparently it's the best there is. For more information on Uphold Ascent, please visit the website, and you can email institutional@uphold.com. At the end of this webinar, we'll send you a little form, which you please fill in properly with the right answers, saying that everything was awesome so I can get my paycheck at the end of the month. Thank you, everyone. Today, we have, for the second time, the marvelous, the brainy, the superstar of blockchains, Yonatan Sompolinsky. Welcome again to Uphold, Yonatan.
My pleasure, my honor.
We spoke last over a year ago at the very beginning of this journey. After the first time we were in contact was 1.5 years ago. But when we spoke in April last year, I think you opened you opened the world's eyes to some basic problems in Bitcoin, and they have echoed. I write about them in my newsletter, my clients talk about them, and certainly Crypto X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, is full of people loving Kaspa. There are 3 apparel makers who make Kaspa gear. One of them is actually my neighborhood. And I went to Bohemia. I went to České Budějovice to get a haircut, which comes with a foot massage there. And on the flea market, somebody sold me a Kaspa sticker for my phone. And that is absolutely in the middle of nowhere. And it's amazing where you can find Kaspa and how this has grown in just the space of a year. Did you expect that? Does it come to you as a surprise too?
I did not expect that, and even when you tell me about it, I am a bit distant from the reality of this. There's a saying that one to which a real event or miracle happens will never recognize it. So this is the state of recognition I'm at.
You realize that it's a big thing. So let's go back to the basics. The most important discussion points of the last webinar were, I think, referred to the longest chain problem and what the actual problem in Bitcoin is that made you go on with your research over a decade and then start the Kaspa blockchain. Can you explain to those who are completely new to Kaspa what the point is? Why do we need it? Why does it have value?
So it's interesting you're starting with Bitcoin because the ecosystem has advanced and new problems with sequencing have arisen. But if we're going back to the beginning, to the genesis of this whole venture, then in consensus protocols, every consensus protocol is characterized by the level of tolerance or flexibility that it has towards how it reacts to the internet latency, to the network latency. And Bitcoin protocol
excuse me, to explain this, we are forgetting sometimes that blockchain run on the internet, right? And the internet has a latency problem. That is what is meant by network latency.
So the latency is maybe a fact. That's the fact of any distributed system. And the behavior of the system with respect to this latency dictates a lot. I know it might sound nuanced and very, very technical, but in fact, if you think this through, then the entire double spend problem stems from latency. The entire need to run consensus in the first place stems from asynchrony, from the fact that two events can happen at different places in the world where the two respective servers or many recipients are not aware of the other events. So it's a basic fact. It's like it's the bedroom of consensus is how do we deal with asynchrony? How do we reconcile two events, two conflicting events that happen in different factions of the network? And this is characteristic of every consensus protocol, and the properties of a consensus protocol are good or bad depending on how it reacts or corresponds to network latency. And the Beacon protocol was a very, of course, was very novel and very successful. At the same time, it solved it in a very fluid manner, by dictating that transactions or blocks of transactions be sent only once in 10 minutes or once in a very long time in internet terms, so that there are practically no conflicts. This was understood by everyone back then, and so everyone accepted Bitcoin's small, long block interval, and and around maybe 2013, 2014, my advisor and myself have embarked on a journey to design proof of work protocols that do not suffer from this problem. More maybe articulate it in a more general manner, that design proof of work protocols that can tolerate arbitrarily large internet latencies. This was the journey. It started with
Yonatan, I'm sorry,
protocols.
your microphone keeps cutting in and out a little bit. Can you try holding it closer? And I have a little bit of problem understanding you. Please continue.
As I was saying, when it
That's
began
worse.
with, it's worse.
That's
Okay.
worse. Can you try now? Sorry for this, guys, but if we don't understand Yonatan, the webinar is quite pointless. Can we try again? Does it work now? Hello? No, I can't hear you. No. You want to leave the room and come back in, maybe? I hope it's not a problem with Webinar Jam. Oh, technology. It's a good thing we're not working for a technology company.
Is it better now, Doc?
This is better now. Let's go on. Where were we? You were explaining
If it won't
about
work,
latency.
I will go to my phone. If it won't work, okay?
Oh, no, it works now. I can hear you clearly now.
Okay. So as I mentioned, the journey began around 2013, 2014, with the goal of designing consensus protocols faithful to the same proof of work paradigm, system architecture, while being able to tolerate internet latency, which practically means higher block rate, faster confirmation time for transactions. This is by and large the origin of the journey. It has developed since. The goals have been expanded, and in perspective on what sequencing, the role of good sequencing systems have expanded as well. So new problems in the ecosystem and maybe new context for this challenge.
So the main motivation was because Bitcoin doesn't consider latency, or has a very crude way of overcoming the latency problem, and that's why we have Kaspa. Kaspa was at first, when we first talked, was running at 1 block per second. A lot has happened in the last year. We are talking about 10 blocks, 100 blocks per second. We have the rewrite to Rust. Let's review the year since April last year when we first talked. What has happened to Kaspa? Where are we now, 1 year later?
So 1 year later, the Rust uh, project is very mature. The the code base is running on mainnet on most nodes, um,
Mhm.
and basically we are ready to use the capabilities of Rust and the architecture that developers engineered Rust built into the Rust code base, and to upgrade the block rate. So the from the development side, which I was not spearheading, the main activity was on enabling high block rate through Rust. Rust is not only about high block rate; it's also about a better architecture. But the need for a better architecture is is manifested, or you can reap the fruit of a better architecture when you increase the block rate.
Mhm.
But this again, this was not my. This is just to be clear. This is not the main. This I'm not the main person behind this effort. This was spearheaded by Michael Sutton and
Mhm.
team of a dozen developers,
Mhm.
and in parallel to that, there's research that is designed to whose goal is to solve further sequencing challenges, all within the context of what can we do with a better consensus protocol? What's the functionality? What's the goal of the consensus protocol? And I can elaborate on that. And so there's these developments will be maybe in the next year or two.
Mhm. Elaborate on that. What is the goal of a consensus protocol? Why is the Casper consensus protocol better? I mean, we've all in academia have all long accepted that the Nakamoto consensus is quite primitive and not suited for a lot of things. But in your own words.
So at first, it's still when speaking about the speed from the UX perspective, and from the narrow ones of speed versus internet latency versus consensus, if we still stick to that paradigm,
Mhm.
then the original Kaspa protocol, Phantom Ghost, is able to tolerate an arbitrarily high throughput with a fixed one. So you need to decide in advance when you launch the currency
Mhm.
what the maximum latency is, and then you run with this fixed parameter. So the way this works, and this is not very unique to Plasma in the sense that this process, any group of developers which launches a single system, a single engine, must decide on launch day what the what the hard-coded the latency parameter will be. This dynamic is spread across all consensus protocols.
Mhm.
Plasma was the original consensus protocol was while adhering to the proof of work paradigm and gaining all the benefits of 51% security, decentralized proof of work, anonymous creation of blocks, etc., we were able through the protocol to say, okay, let's to tolerate any proof of work, protocol, any throughput. Okay, so
Mhm.
um, this was the original invention of. I see people complaining of this. Maybe I will try to um, move to the phone to let me know if it's better.
There we are talking about internet latency and protocols, and we can't make the microphone work. Okay, now we've got two of you.
Is this by any chance better?
This is much better. Let's do it on the good old phone.
Okay.
I found that out myself. I'm paying for internet bandwidth for my router, and my 5G is 10 times faster than anything I can get over my Wi-Fi. It's insane.
Well, this was
All
all in order to prove to you that the internet still cannot be relied on, and that's why we need Kaspa.
That's why we need
As we
Kaspa,
agreed
because of
before
latency.
this
The
webinar.
internet is unreliable. It is, by the way, it is the reason why we see this concentration of Bitcoin miners, right? It makes economic sense to be concentrated in a space with low latency. A miner on the island of Vanuatu wouldn't stand a chance. Please continue.
Right. Let me touch on this point, but and also rehash what I said about Kaspa original protocol, the upgrade, and what the role of sequencing is, because these things are part of them are overlooked, part of them are forgotten. So from the perspective of speed, you want the engine to be able to tolerate. We have no patience. We want ping pong. We want a user to send a transaction, get immediate confirmation. So in that sense, impatience is one of the core values of Kaspa. We want
that goes
internet
for
money.
Everyone on Twitter impatiently typing, when is Kaspa going to $1? Patience, people. Patience in transactions. Okay. Continue, especially with the latest generation. People have no attention spans and no patience anymore.
Yeah, as Naval said, be impatient with actions, but patient with results.
Very, very well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's go back to the first upgrade. So about maybe 4.5 years ago. So as I said, any team of consensus developers that is launching a consensus engine typically must sit on day 1 or day 0 and say, hey, what's the maximum internet latency that we are okay with protecting against? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 1 hour? Of course, the immediate trade-off is the more paranoid you are, the larger safety margin you are baking into the system, the more secure you are, and the more slow you are. So this is basic speed security trade-off. And the original protocol of Kaspa did not escape this trade-off. That was the Phantom GhostDAG protocol. Its only upgrade or only improvement over Bitcoin Nakamoto consensus protocol was that it can tolerate 1 block per second or 1 block per 100 millisecond. But again, it's the throughput must be constant and the delay must be known in advance. Now, the DAG protocol, which Michael Sutton and I co-authored, alleviates this and escapes this trade-off. It basically says that the network, the consensus protocol will self-adjust and understand what the sufficient fraction of blocks, what fraction of blocks is sufficient to secure the current network, and will respond to the network latency. And in that sense, this is a big upgrade because you get 2 benefits. One benefit is when the internet is smooth, you confirm transactions much faster. And the other is that when the internet, there's a big hiccup or World War III, then you're still secure. You're slower, but you're secure. This is a very important upgrade. It will take time to finalize this. We are working on this. There's also applied research going on behind the scenes on the providing efficient algorithms to calculate DAG. So we're not yet near the end, but this is a very important one. And this, again, all of this is still in the context of the narrow paradigm, the narrow lens of viewing the role of sequencing as providing as fast as possible confirmations. Okay. Now, if you think in this paradigm, there is no reason to go beyond 10 blocks per second, because from a user perspective, there's no difference between 100 milliseconds and 10 milliseconds. We are not that sensitive to time. There are, however, advantages to going ballistic on the block rate, and these advantages stem from a deeper property of high block rate, or of the asynchronous consensus, and that is you are enabling a healthy market of transaction fees. Because instead of having most consensus protocols that you are aware of, in crypto and outside crypto, there's one leader, one miner, one validator, proposer. Each consensus, each community invents their own glorified terms, but you have one leader that sequences this round. So for proof of stake, you will have, in Ethereum, once every 12 seconds, a certain validator is selected, and that I think proposer is the monopolistic entity that's controlling that round. Whether the round is 1 per second or 1 per 12 seconds, regardless of the time constants, the time scale, most consensus protocols operate in this manner. But
the opposite would be leaderless consensus, right?
The opposite would be leaderless consensus, and without delving into what exactly the technical definition is, the practical implication is you send your transactions to several entities which can compete over your transaction. And you might say, okay, is this a transaction fee? You're saving me a few cents on Kaspa fees. And the answer is, nowadays, the competition on transactions is the main thing, the main action in crypto. It's called MEV, and basically MEV took the entire crypto space from the discussion about consensus protocol and what happens, how fast you mine blocks, and how fast do the blocks pile and provide you security. It took all this and said, well, what happens between zero confirmation and first confirmation? So you see, I worked for many years. Yeah, the sequencing part. So I worked many years on designing good consensus protocols that will give you a very fast first confirmation and end confirmation, But then it turns out that there's lots and lots of money that in the gap between zero confirmation and one confirmation. And this is known to anyone that's familiar with in finance, the algo trading manipulation.
That's called in finance front running. That's what MEV is.
So front run, I would say algo trading, front running, back running, sandwich attacks, etc.
Which seems,
and if you think about
no, please go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
So I'm saying, if you think about algo trading, for instance, in Wall Street, then in Wall Street, you at least have the assurance, or the hopeful, the optimistic assurance, that the IT personnel of Wall Street are not tinkering with your transaction, are not sandwiching you, merely for the fear of law. Now, this is in crypto, the miners are anonymous. At least some miners are anonymous, and under no jurisdiction, or at least no North American jurisdiction, and they can manipulate your transaction at will.
Yeah.
Now, so this is essentially a paradigm shift. If you look at computer science research in crypto, everything shifted from discussing one-to-end confirmations to discussing 0 to 1. What happens in this gap? And in that context, in this broader lens, you can realize that having many entities per round compete on mining the next block and sequencing the next block and sequencing a user transaction is very, very helpful. Because then Dr. Martin can say, hey, I don't know, I'm a liquidity provider. I don't know what the correct price is because there's asynchrony, and someone can front run me, can snap me, can spoof my transaction. I will let the miners compete and who give me the best price and the best kickback. So let's say my liquidity is very large, and I might get a kickback from miners of $1,000. In equilibrium, it will match the MEV. So this is very important.
I remember when this came about. I was still with Ethereum in the foundation, and it was a bombshell, right? The realization of this was an absolute shock to people in Ethereum. So how does Kaspa? Oh, they were flabbergasted. That was a memorable session. So how does Kaspa come into that? What does Kaspa do with sequencing and MEV?
So the research that I'm investing in currently is how to utilize the fact that we will support 10 to 100 blocks per second, how to utilize this to run an auction and competition among miners so as to guarantee to users that they will get full kickback for the MEV at their expense. So if you think about a Wall Street engine, now consider a scenario where there are 10 or 100 Wall Street engines, and they all compete on Dr. Martin's transaction. Who gets to sequence it? And the winner in this auction is that which gives you the highest kickback. So by inventing or by devising a competition, by designing a competitive market for your transaction, we're able not to solve the MEV, not to eliminate, not to prevent MEV, but rather to guarantee that you will get full compensation for that, for the MEV that was done at your expense. This is I would argue this is a paradigm shift, because it was thought that as I mentioned, it was thought that, okay, the entire MEV is done between the zero and first confirmation, but still all the auctions that are proposed in the community today, all these mechanisms are still with one leader. One leader controls everything. There's a monopolistic sequencer in almost all systems that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And you need this chaotic 10 to 100 competing entities to provide MEV protection. So this is another main thing that I'm working on.
So it doesn't eliminate MEV, but it gives you the kickback from it, and the MEV bot isn't the winner. I'd like to move on to two other things. First of all, I've got 4 more questions here written down. I leave the outlook last. The question of the security budget, right? So we have, especially in Bitcoin, we have this never-ending discussion about Bitcoin not actually doing anything, and the security budget being exhausted because it only incentivizes miners. So the question is, how does the future of Kaspa in terms of continuously providing security look like? I'm assuming the answer has to do with making Kaspa actually useful, but I put the question to you. How does Kaspa remain sustainable and doesn't run into the same problems that we've seen with Bitcoin in terms of miner concentration, lack of uses, and the security budget?
So miner concentration is mitigated through a high block rate. A high block rate means there's less of a push for you to join a mining pool. There are maybe other considerations for you to join a mining pool, but the lack of granularity of rewards is not one of them in Kaspa. So as a miner, you can, if you have 1% of the hash rate and we will be running on 100 blocks per second, you will be mining 1 block per second. This is the end goal, the dream, that it will be sufficient for an entity to own 1% of the hash rate in order to mine 1 block per second. And then I imagine a significant part of the miners will be service providers that will mine their users' transactions. So maybe a smart contract wallet, or other forms of wallets with specific users, a specific user base.
Maybe
Now,
Uphold.
yeah, no, maybe. Uphold
No,
is,
maybe. Yeah, I know.
but you'll need to compete. That's the thing. I mean, even if you bribe me, you'll still need to compete with 99 other entities. So I guess our friendship won't be that helpful for you.
Okay, thanks for
In terms
letting
of
me know.
usefulness, in terms of usefulness, it's definitely the case that we have to implement smart contracts, but this will not be done as an afterthought. There's a reason why we will do this in the next year, not in the past year.
Yeah.
And I'll explain what's how the timing here is very, very important. So in Ethereum implemented smart contracts in 2014. Now, since then, so to speak, originally it was a design of optimistic rollups. Pardon me, and then as zero knowledge technology became more and more efficient, more and more scalable, zero knowledge rollups came along, and they're basically they seem to be the main contender, not in terms of adoption, but in terms of technological sense. Now, if you told if ZK technology was available back then when Ethereum launched, then no one would invent a Turing-complete on-chain smart contract system. You would utilize the gap between computation and verification that DKP enables to say, well, the user or their service provider or some other entity will utilize that, will provide a proof to the system of the computation, and all the decentralized system will use the network of decentralized nodes will only need to consume resources for verification. This is a very basic and trivial design. I'm not, it's not something that I claim ownership over. Now, also, this is the same. This is true also of Bitcoin. If in the days of Bitcoin, you had some way to, in a scalable manner, to introduce an opcode to verify zero knowledge proofs, then this would have been done in 2009. And then again, the system. So you have now a situation where Bitcoin was developed, and Bitcoin and Ethereum were developed before there was this technology of a user doing the computation, the entire network doing only verification. And the way Satoshi approached it is, okay, there, implicitly at least, although if I recall, there were some discussion on this in blog posts, but the way Satoshi approached it is, okay, the scripting language of Bitcoin is verification focused, no computation, verification focused. Yeah. And the way Vitalik approached it is the scripting language of Ethereum is fully expressive, full computation.
That's why we threw out in Bitcoin the opcat code, right? If the Professor Uchida's opcat would have been part of Bitcoin from the beginning, it would have had smart contracts from day one. But the focus
not
was
fully natively, not fully natively. Even opcat would just make things easier, but not. You'll still need the bridge to Bitcoin wouldn't be trustless, even with opcat. Wouldn't be fully trustless. Now, with the spring of ZKVM tech today, all that Kaspa needs to do is add one, maybe 2 or 3 opcodes for several, ZKPs, like Stark this version, Snark this version, and then through a friendly clone, use the existing code base. So it's essential that you keep the same architecture as, I will say this maybe more bluntly. It's from a timing perspective and an architecture perspective, it's the first project that is designed like Bitcoin with an efficient technology out there for computation off-chain. Okay, in Ethereum, it's more like you design this entire computational stack. People invented rollups, and then gradually, the usage of the layer 1 is through rollups, but it's like an afterthought architecture. So this is something that has to happen in Kaspa, and yeah, it needs to happen in a pace that will ensure that it has usage, and we need to plug in somehow to the broader DeFi ecosystem in order to ensure that there's not only an ability to use it, but also a demand for it. So there's a lot of work to reduce friction from a user-based adoption. Yeah, so that's to address your question on security budget.
We have a lot more visibility now. Lots of stuff is happening. What things do you see Kaspa being good at? Especially good at? I think last time we talked, it was the possibility of being an Ethereum rollup, DeFi. Has that changed in any way? What are the future main applications for Kaspa, in your view?
So DeFi is, in general, finance is currently the main application that is very sensitive to the ordering of transactions. Most other applications are not very sensitive to the ordering. And so they can use, like supply chains, which can use an authenticated database and does not need even consensus. So if you search the landscape for a good use case, it will always be around finance or order sensitive domains. Now, so Kaspa is, there are not many things Kaspa is good at and wants to be good at. Kaspa is perfecting the sequencing properties. And I can't overemphasize this. Once you solved, it's like a necessary and sufficient and necessary condition in order to be useful. Because once other projects solved the computation verification gap, there's nothing else to solve other than good sequencing. Now the crypto community invents new terms for things that were around a long time ago. I remember when blockchains were still DLTs, and there's many names for this. So today in Ethereum ecosystem, this is called shared sequencing. Maybe a year ago, there was a heated debate about side chains, whether it's a side chain or L2 around Polygon. A year before that was data availability layers. Every year, at least me personally, I need to relearn what I already knew, just adjust the new names.
Just because they give it a new name.
Yeah, ingenious marketing teams. But you need to, and then there's like nuances, about data availability layer versus sequencing layer versus shared sequencing, and every nuance supposedly justifies a new marketing campaign. But the gist of all of this is that nothing matters other than good sequencing, and good sequencing means speed and MEV protection. And while this seems very specific, well, why is he talking about MEV protection? Is it just a trend? No, MEV is the informational gap between the sequencer and the transaction issuer, and this informational gap is millions of dollars per day. So it's not picking the nail that we know how to deal with. It's picking something that is very inherent to asynchronous systems. Okay, so that's where Kaspa.
It does make the perfect DeFi engine and trading engine. This will be very interesting for our institutional clients. I want to put one last question because we're already on for 40 minutes. First of all, we're going to have apparently the KRC20 tokens. People are developing this sooner or later. But there is now a consensus in finance that we don't need a digital this, a digital that, dollar, euro. We're not going to transact in some crypto, but stable coins have become a key tool for finance, and governments and central banks have a much easier time using stablecoins than getting into crypto and running their own blockchains. I suppose we will see a stablecoin on Kaspa sooner or later. And with the properties of Kaspa, that would be an absolutely super versatile, fantastic stablecoin. I think you talked about that at a meetup in Israel.
There's no doubt that there will be a stablecoin, and that without a stablecoin, it's not useful. You can't solve the bootstrap by just waiting for everyone to come and the money and the price to stabilize, and then we'll start being useful. With that said, I will highlight there is another research bootstrapping on this matter, and that is the main problem of stablecoins is liquidation events. And the entire stablecoin or the most of stablecoins in DeFi are based on collateral or over collateralization of the loan or of the print of the stablecoin, which makes totally sense. But yeah, so this makes sense. Yet it opens up two important questions that I will deliberately leave open for now, both for the sake of time and for the sake of teasing you and ensuring that you'll invite at least one of my co-authors for another webinar. And that is, so the two attack vectors, or the two fundamental ambiguities that it opens up are what entities report to the system the prices. So there's the Oracle problem. And when you think about the Oracle problem, the experience is like, okay, did we solve anything by doing a Turing complete blockchain? Because the finance here, the entire finance, is based on a stablecoin, whose security is based on 10 permission servers that are reporting to us the price. So it seems like the Turing complete system has solved everything until you realize that it requires an external set of permissioned oracles to report to you the security of the stability. This is a one major flaw. And the other one is when the oracles correctly or incorrectly, spontaneously or maliciously report to you that some liquidation ought to take place. What's the ordering again? What's the sequencing? What's the ordering in which the collateral owners are liquidated? And even outside the lens of MEV, whether the miners can or cannot manipulate this liquidation event. Spoiler alert, they can. But even putting that aside, there's the conceptual challenge, which is more in finance, thinking about this financially, or in terms of mechanism design, I would say, which agent should be liquidated and in what ordering. This is another thing I'm working on. This is part of my postdoc research, and I hope to give you more details in our next meeting.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to the next meeting already. Austin will be reaching out to you with a next date. We can discuss stablecoins. If anybody wants to trade on Uphold, message institutional@uphold.com. I will be in New York 2 weeks from now. If anybody wants to talk to me, I will be at some event on a boat, on a warship. I have no idea why, but I'm flying to New York in 2 weeks, and to speak about, amongst other things, sequencing and Kaspa and the world beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Put your questions to our research@uphold.com email. We will do a cut of this webinar where we cut out the problems with the microphone and make it a bit shorter for public consumption. And there will also be a transcript, I think. Thank you so much, Yonatan. All the best. I hope this conflict thing in Israel is over soon. People are suffering. This is not good. Thank you for finding the time to join us here at Uphold, and I'm looking very much forward to our next meeting.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I apologize for the problems with the mic.
No, I'm sure you're going to get 10 mics in the mail right now from Kaspa fans around the world.
Fortunately, they do not know my mail address.
Which is a good thing in your case. I assume you would be bombarded with stuff. Stay safe, stay happy, keep
I appreciate
building.
it, Doc. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Yeah.